Well, hi there. It is 11:15 and time to show up. I'm showing up. I'm glad you showed up. I appreciate every single one of you. Do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit, and let's shit in the box. As you can see, there's a second take at this video. I want to talk about the quantum entanglement device in Starfield. And I also want to talk about a basic concept that is really frustrating me when people talk about Starfield and its quote-unquote flaws. But I want to start with the quantum entanglement device because it dramatically alters the way the game unfolds. Before the quantum entanglement device, the only way to improve your starborn powers was going through the Unity. And the problem is that when you got to the point where you could go through the Unity, the price of the Unity was everything. All of your equipment, all of your outposts, all of your relationships, all of your property and homes, all of your ships, all of your money, everything. You gave up all of it so you could go through the Unity. Well, why would you do such a thing? Why would you do that? Why would you reset everything? Why would you make this choice? There's a point in the main quest where a thing happens and you don't like it. And going through the Unity gives you an opportunity to make the thing not happen. And that's important. It's important to go through the Unity and to try the two avenues of making the thing not happen. Because you get a choice. They give you a choice. They say, do you want to do this? Or do you want to do that? And you go, I will do this, and bad thing happens. So you go through the Unity, and the next thing that you can do is you can go through and you can pretend you're not starborn and you don't have any foreknowledge, and you go, oh, I remember I did this and bad thing happened. I will do that. Ooh, bad thing happens. It's a different bad thing, but it's a very similar bad. It's just as bad. It is just as bad of a thing. Well, shit. So obviously you want to do something about that. You get to the point you can go through the Unity again, and you go through the Unity again, and you go, okay, this time I'm going to use my starborn foreknowledge, and I'm going to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Bad thing will happen if we don't do this. And it's a different thing. Everybody goes, ooh, we better do that, and you do that, and then the bad thing doesn't happen. So success. No bad thing happens. You have accomplished this. And you've got a fourth option. Your next time through the Unity, you can go, all right, I've done fixed that. You know what? Fuck it. Guys, I'm from the future, and how do you like that? And chances are good that during these 4 trips through the Unity, one of them you're going to encounter a parallel universe, and that parallel universe is going to be different, and you're going to have to change the way that you approach things. So you probably end up going through the Unity 5 times. There's just one problem. We already have a mechanism for trying different choices to see what happens. It's called quick save. You hit quick save and you try the thing, and if you don't like it, you quick load and you try the other thing. And then when you don't like that either, you go, well, fuck this shit. It doesn't matter what I choose. They both suck. And you move on. But now you've gotten 2 of those things out of the way. So when you get into your New Game Plus, you go through the Unity once, and now you have the option to use your starborn knowledge. And that's, once you do that, you're done. And that's the one time through. the things that don't change after going through the Unity, and there are changes in a lot of stuff. There are a lot of places where being Starborn, having gone through the Unity, does change what you can do in given situations. And it works out well, and it makes things easier. But it's not that different from just starting a new game. And your ability to save the game and reload. The only real use of the Unity is to let you improve your Starborn powers. And when it comes to improving your Starborn powers, the order that you get the temples is always the same. So if you don't go to all of the temples in one of your playthroughs, like if you only go to 10 temples in each playthrough, okay, your first time through the Unity, you'll go to those 10 temples and you'll increase the same 10 powers by one level. So you'll be working on the same 10 powers until you've got them all done. And then when you've done that through 10 times through the Unity, your next time through the Unity, because all of the temples happen in the same order, the rest of the temples, the other 13 temples you haven't been to, you have to do the first 10 temples to get to those anyway. So you're not actually saving anything. You're going to have to do 230 temples. You're going to have to do 23 temples in one playthrough to get all the way down to the parallel self power. You're going to have to do all 23, all in one playthrough. If you don't do all 23 in one playthrough, you can't get to that power at all. But now that we have the quantum entanglement device, and we also have the ability to upgrade Starborn powers after your trip through the Unity using quantum essence, well, now you only have to go through the Unity once. You go through the Unity once, and you pass your most important stuff through it, and you grind quantum essence to improve all of the powers you actually care about. And that's all you have to do. But there was a lesson in going through the Unity over and over. And that lesson in going through the Unity over and over was the stuff you carry doesn't really matter. The outposts that you built, all of the outposts that you built, you can build them again. All of the ships you built, you can build them again. The houses you bought, you can buy them again. All of the guns that you carried, you can find those guns again. All of the armor that you wore, you can find that armor again. It's supposed to encourage you toward an understanding that you don't need the best shit in the game. You should become accustomed to just picking up whatever's there and using it. And you get to a point where you can do that, where it's just you load into the game, you land somewhere, you go in, and oh, it's ecliptic. Well, I have Starborn powers to account for the first guy, and then I can take his weapon, and whatever it is, I can just use that. Multiple trips through the Unity and ongoing level progress and skill progression and all of that sort of thing. That leads you there automatically if you do this. But people were not doing it. People were not going through the Unity. They were unwilling to give up all of their stuff. They didn't see the point. They didn't see why to do it. And another thing that they were doing is the people who were going through the Unity, and I'm guilty of this, the people who were going through the Unity were just not bothering with the main quest. They weren't going to Constellation at all. They were just like bumming around, going to other stuff, doing other things, engaging solely with the open world. And Bethesda made one attempt to say, hey, go to the lodge first. And the way they did that was to say, here's the strongest armor you could get in the game. It's in your room at the lodge. Every time you go through the Unity, it's in your room at the lodge. You just got to go to the lodge, go upstairs, go into your room. There it is. And you have the best armor in the game. And you can't go into your room at the lodge until you've talked to Sarah and given them the artifact and you've been invited to join Constellation. You don't have to join Constellation, but you have to be invited. And you have to go there and find out what kind of parallel universe you're in, if there is one. And what they found was that a lot of people just didn't fucking care about the armor. They just still didn't go to the lodge. But now the quantum entanglement device actually does get that done. It does make people go directly to the lodge because you have to. Your stuff is there. Your stuff is there. You pass the stuff through. You got to go to the lodge. You got to get your stuff. So they've accomplished that. But you don't learn the detachment from your stuff. So it's like, if you played the game before the Free Lanes update, you effectively played a different game, not just in the sense of space travel was a little bit different, but in the sense of progression came at an entirely different cost. They've made progression cheaper and easier and more controllable. I had no choice when upgrading my powers. I had to go to every single temple in the game 10 times. I didn't have a choice. There was no other way to do it. It was what I had to do. But I did not do what a lot of fucking idiots did, because they wanted to. A lot of people just like rushed it. It's like they hammered through the main quest and they did all of the temples, and then they hit the Unity and hammered through the main quest and did all of the temples, and they just did this over and over, and they burned themselves out. And they said, "Oh God, I never want to go to one of these fucking temples ever again." And I get it, okay? I understand that. But we're now at a point where grinding temples is one of the best ways to get quantum essence, which, you know, that's par for the course, I guess. But you had these people that just hit that grind and did everything, and they burned themselves out on it. And I see people doing that. I see people just grinding the thing that they want until they have it. And then they're just like, okay, I have the thing that I have. I'm done. There's like all of this stuff in the game that you could be engaging with, and there are all of these different things that you could be doing. And you should push through this and not use your save game feature to scum the choices and figure out what the easiest one is. You should live with your failures. And I feel like that's the proper way to play the game. And I know everybody thinks the way I play the game is the proper way to play, but I just feel like you should try to do all of the faction quests before you go through the Unity. And you should try different paths through those quests as you go, and you should try to find that stuff. And I always tried to just use what I could lay my hands on as my equipment. I don't like the Starborn suits. I feel like the Starborn suits are ostentatious and showy, and I don't want to wear them. So every time I would go through the Unity, the first thing I would do is go land on Crete and go through the pirate base and like kill the pirates so I could collect armor that wasn't Starborn and a weapon that wasn't Starborn. And then other times I went through and I said, you know what? I'm just going to thoroughly embrace being Starborn, and I'm going to go through and use nothing but powers. That's fun. That's an interesting way to go about things, to use nothing but your Starborn powers to go through the main quest, to go through other quest lines. It's very useful. It's a fairly fascinating approach to the game. But when they talk about exploration in Starfield, it's not just exploring space. It's exploring possibilities. It's exploring paths, exploring potential, exploring options. And you should be doing that. But I feel like everybody, and this is typical of games, it's just a game design fact. If your game has a best weapon, everybody is going to use it. If you have a best armor, everybody's going to use it. If you have a best skill, everybody's going to use it. If you have a best character class, everybody's going to use it. Everybody in Skyrim is a stealth archer. There's a reason for that. But the thing about Starfield is you don't have to get the best anything. You can use fairly crappy stuff and it's okay. But with the quantum entanglement device, I mean, what I'm doing obviously is I'm building my dream armor. I'm building my dream weapons. I'm putting them in the quantum entanglement device every time I go through the Unity. That's not an exploration. That's just that's a pointless attachment to things that really shouldn't matter. And I kind of miss the old Unity where you go through and you lose everything. But at the same time, now that I can pass stuff through the Unity using the quantum entanglement device, well, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I just like want to pass that through? Then I obviously have to go to the lodge immediately, but why wouldn't I do that, you know? And one of the things that I've been thinking is this change truly alters the way that you approach the game. It alters the meaning and effect of the Unity and of New Game Plus. And it very much is like we're playing a different game. Advancement is different now. Advancement is different, and progress is different, and that's very frustrating. The other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about, I watched some guy's 1.5 hour long video on Starfield, and I am not going to mention his name. Because holy fuck was this guy monumentally fucking stupid. I don't know how to articulate to people that when the story isn't what you expected it to be, that's not a mistake. That's the story being different. And this guy kept saying, make it make sense. And I was like, what do you mean, make it make sense? It makes perfect sense. You just wanted something different. You thought something else would happen and it didn't. And there's no reason to think that would happen. He was complaining that when you do the Crimson Fleet mission, nobody cares if you side with the Crimson Fleet. If you side with the Crimson Fleet and you decide you're going to be a pirate and you kill everybody on board the Vigilance and you capture the Vigilance, you take over Sistef's ship, nobody cares. This is not true because Sistef becomes hostile to you forever. Just like if you side with Sistef, the Crimson Fleet goes back to being hostile to you forever. But his complaint was that you can publicly betray Sistef and then just merrily walk into New Atlantis or Cydonia and nobody cares because you don't have a bounty. And I just kind of sit here and go, you know you were undercover, right? Like you know you were undercover. So when you went to work for Commander Akande, he didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew you were doing that. And then when you went and you did all that stuff for the Crimson Fleet, it's like, look at what you did. You broke into an abandoned prison and you dug up a slate. And you went onto a cruise liner and you got a guy's bank credentials. And then you broke into a military space station and you stole a classified project. Nobody's telling anybody you stole the classified project, and they don't know it was you. They think it was Ensign Zaremi. Well, they think it was Ensign Zaremi for me. You might have stolen somebody else's uniform, but they thought I was Ensign Zaremi. And then you stole the conduction grid plans from Generdyne. They're not telling anybody about that. None of this is public knowledge. This is all secret. Nobody knows shit about this. Then you go off to Crix's legacy and you collect the legacy's treasure and you bring it back to the fleet. Nobody knows you did that except the fleet. And then when the Vigilance shows up and goes, hey, you motherfuckers, you kill everybody. That's all the people who know what you're doing. That's all the people that know you were undercover with the Crimson Fleet, and you kill them all. Now, of course, what this dumbass seems to expect is that you led the fleet in taking on the Vigilance. No, you didn't. Neva Mora led the fleet. Well, but I was instrumental. No. Delgado ordered you to join the fleet, commanded by Neva Mora, and you boarded the Vigilance, and you did your shit as a pirate. You're just a pirate. You're a random, nameless, faceless pirate. Nobody knows your name. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody fucking cares. The only thing they care about when you land in New Atlantis or Sidonia is, have you got a bounty? No? You're cool. Off you go then. Nobody knows who you are. You're not famous. You're not special. You're not notorious. You're nobody. You don't matter. You're a random schmuck wandering around the universe. And this guy just kept sitting there and going, it doesn't make sense that I can do all of this stuff when I've been off doing this thing. Nobody knows. And I've been off doing that thing. Nobody cares. And I've been off doing this. Dude, nobody gives a single shit what you did. You don't lead anything. You don't command anything. You don't control anything. You're just some random schmuck. He didn't seem to understand that. He seemed to view all of the faction quests as being essentially identical to the ones in Skyrim, where you come out at the end being in charge of whatever faction. You don't do that in Starfield. It doesn't happen. And he's like, this doesn't make sense. Why does it make sense that some random dumbass can join this faction? Because any random dumbass can join that faction. What part of this are you not getting? You go to work at Ryujin, and the application algorithm is approving all applicants. And you walk in when you do, and you have your talk with Imogene Salzo, and she's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm tired of these interviews. Go get everybody some coffee. You could have been anybody. You didn't do anything special. You didn't impress anybody. You don't have special skills. You don't have special abilities. Nobody fucking cares. You just showed up. You're in the wrong place at the right time. That's it. Freestar Rangers, you show up, you talk the guy out of the hostage situation at the bank, or you go in and you shoot everybody, whatever. You resolve the hostage situation at the bank. He goes, you know what? You could be Freestar Ranger, but you could be a cop. Why don't you go become a cop? And you go in and they say, well, maybe it was luck. So why don't you just go do some random schmuck mission off the mission board? And you do the random schmuck mission off the mission board, and they go, all right, you're a random schmuck that can do this fucking job. And then, everything you do for the Freestar Rangers, nobody fucking cares. Nobody hears about it. You go back, all you do is go back and report to the marshal. You just go back and report to the marshal. You go, I found this, I found this, I found this, I found this. When they say, hey, here's the guy who broke the news about Ron Hope, it's not going to be you. It's going to be Marshall Blake and the guy who broke the encrypted slates. They're the ones who did the work. You're just the random schmuck who did the legwork. That's all. And if you take the bribe at the end, then you didn't do anything. And if you don't take the bribe, pretty sure, I may be misremembering, but I'm fairly sure they cover up the events of Ron Hope's death and say he just like had a heart attack or something. I seem to recall that happens. Could be wrong, but I don't think it comes out that he did what he did, whether you take the bribe or not. It doesn't matter. Nothing you do matters in this game. You don't have a meaningful effect on anything, and that's intentional. It's intentional that you go through the universe and you don't seem to have much of an impact. You don't really change much of anything. You have magical starborn powers and you can't do shit. You can't really make any meaningful change in the order of things. And this fucking dumbass kept going, well, How come I can't just like fuck everything up and change everything and just like ruin the whole natural order of things? Try that in the real world. Try going out and making a meaningful difference in the nature of things in the real world. You can't do it. It's too fucking big. You don't have that kind of power. You don't have that kind of influence. It's the same in Starfield. You don't have that kind of power. You don't have that kind of influence. You can't make those meaningful changes. You cannot shoot Benjamin Bayou in the head. You know exactly where he is. He's right up here. He's in his little room at the top of the Astral Lounge. You cannot shoot him in the head. You just can't. You're not allowed to. You don't have that level of influence, and they won't let you have it. It's interesting to question why. Benjamin Bayou basically has to be essential because he's instrumental in so many things. But why can't I shoot Benjamin Bayou and completely ruin the entire infrastructure of Neon? Because it would ruin the entire infrastructure of Neon, for one. And because you don't have that kind of influence or power. You can't do that. You don't have that option. Even if you try to have that option, you can't. It doesn't work. And I understand that a lot of people would like this to be like Fallout, where you get to lead the factions, or like Skyrim, where you get to lead the factions. But you don't. You don't get to lead the factions. You only ever get to be a peon. You're only ever a pissant. You never become meaningful or important in anything in this game. Ever. And that's intentional. That's part of your story. Part of your story is that no matter how powerful you are, no matter how hard you work, no matter what you do, you're stuck being a peon. You never gain any substantial influence, any substantial power. You just don't. And that's the story. And that's what the story is supposed to be. And I understand that people would like it to be different, and I understand that people wish it could have been done differently. And they go, well, they could have done it differently, and yes, they could have, but they didn't because they did not want to. They wanted to present this story where you can't have a meaningful effect. You are nobody and you don't matter. I think that's important. I think it's an important part of the story they're telling. Just like there's so much weird shit that goes on in Starfield. And I've mentioned this before, but it's like, for example, if you park your butt in a chair outside of Jemison Mercantile and you just watch a Molly at the counter, she never leaves. She does not eat or sleep or go to the bathroom. She never leaves the premises. She doesn't have a house. She doesn't have a schedule. She doesn't do anything. Bethesda games, most of the people have schedules. Like, they all have schedules. That's a thing that they do. Nobody has a schedule in Starfield. Well, almost nobody. There's a guy at Infinity Ltd. Who has a schedule because that's important to a quest, that you have to wait until he leaves his desk so you can go and hack the lock. Hack the computer, rather. But nobody has a schedule. Why don't they have a schedule? We know that they can give people schedules. We even know they can give people schedules in Starfield. That one guy has one. And then there are points of interest that are clearly unique, like oh God, what's the there's a pharmaceutical company. Can't remember the name of it. Muybridge Pharmaceuticals. And in the basement of Muybridge Pharmaceuticals, you can read all of the terminal entries at Muybridge Pharmaceuticals, and you can read the founder saying, I got to try and find something to do because we're about to go bankrupt. And when you get into the bottom of the facility, there are some caverns where he was digging for something, and you find his body. Clearly a unique location. There's a named person. This is like Charlie Muybridge or whatever the fuck his name is. And there he is, dead. And then you fly halfway across the goddamn universe, and you find another Muybridge Pharmaceuticals. And in the basement of that one, you find Muybridge Caverns, and you find Charlie fucking Muybridge dead in the caverns on the other side of the galaxy. How does that work? This is clearly a uniquely... There's only one of these. Why are there two? Why are there two? There's more than two. There's dozens. They're all over the place. Why is that? I think it's because all this unity jumping is fucking everything up, and parallel universes are poking through one another. I think that's also why the Terran Armada suddenly shows up. You've had no Terran Armada. Playthrough after playthrough after playthrough. No Terran Armada. Suddenly there's Terran Armada. Why? Because at some point, the first parallel universe that has the Terran Armada in it intersected with yours. And now that intersection is there forever. Remember, they said the unity is where all the parallel universes intersect. And I think every time you go through the unity, you drag your universe with you. And if you've been through it 20 or 30, or in my case, 45 times, I think you drag all of them with you. And in this universe, Muybridge Pharmaceuticals was here, and in that universe, Muybridge Pharmaceuticals was there. But now you've dragged those two universes together, and it's in both places. I think that's what's going on. I think at some point we're going to get the big reveal that every time you go through the Unity, you are dragging part of your universe with you, and it comes along. And I would really like to see them do something that that makes that meaningfully apparent. I think that's going to happen. I think that's going to happen eventually. I think maybe the end of this year. Because historically, Bethesda likes to do 3 DLCs for their big flagship titles. And I think the 3rd DLC is going to be the Starborn DLC. I think it's going to show up next year. Maybe end of this year. Probably end of next year, now that I think about it. Probably towards September of 2027. That seems reasonable. But yeah, I think the next DLC is going to be something that says, hey, all of this Unity jumping is fucking everything up. It's causing problems. I'd like to see that. And I would like to see the ability to do something with your skill points. But yeah, that's basically what I had to talk about. And well, that's all I had to say about that. And again, do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. Okay, bye.